The first strange signals appeared during a routine scan of the Kuiper belt. Dr. Elena Santos double-checked her instruments, ran 3 separate diagnostic tests, and still couldn't explain what she was seeing. The quantum fluctuations didn't match any known natural phenomenon, and they definitely weren't human in origin. She should have reported it immediately to her superiors at the Global Space Agency. That's what the protocols demanded. Instead, she spent 3 days verifying her findings and developing a theory that seemed impossible. Someone was watching Earth, and they were doing a remarkably poor job of hiding it. The problem was, they weren't trying to hide it at all. They simply assumed humans weren't advanced enough to detect them. Director Chen needs to see this, she muttered, gathering her data into an encrypted package. The signals painted a clear picture: massive ships, at least 30 of them, holding position just beyond Neptune's orbit. Their energy signatures suggested technology far beyond anything humanity had publicly revealed. Publicly being the operative word. 12 hours later, Elena found herself in a windowless room 300 feet beneath the Rocky Mountains, surrounded by people whose security clearances probably had security clearances. Director Chen, a slight woman with steel-gray hair and eyes that missed nothing, studied the data with an expression that shifted from concern to something Elena couldn't quite read. Was that amusement? Dr. Santos, Chen said finally, what you've discovered has been known to a select few for almost 15 years. The question is, what do you think we should do about it? Elena blinked. 15 years. But why haven't we made contact? Announced their presence to the world. Chen's smile held no warmth. Because, Doctor, we've been playing a very long game. Those ships belong to something calling itself the Concordat of civilized species. They believe they found another primitive world to guide toward their version of civilization. The director stood, walking to a wall that suddenly became transparent, revealing a vast chamber below. Elena's breath caught as she saw what it contained. Rows upon rows of ships, their designs unlike anything publicly known to exist. They were beautiful, deadly, and impossible. Welcome to Project Oracle, Chen said. For 15 years, we've let them think we're barely able to reach Mars. We've hidden our quantum technology, our gravitic drives, our neural networks. Every failed mission to the outer planets has been a carefully orchestrated deception. Because we learned something about our watchers. They don't guide civilizations, they subjugate them. Elena's mind raced, connecting dots she hadn't even known existed. The sudden slowdown in public space development, the seemingly failed experiments in quantum physics, the inexplicable gaps in published research. It's all been a lie. A necessary one. The Concordat's pattern is clear. They find developing civilizations, wait until they reach a certain technological threshold, then sweep in with their guidance program. Those who accept it become client states, their development carefully controlled. Those who resist. Chen's pause spoke volumes. But why wait? Elena asked. If we have all this, she gestured at the hidden fleet below. Why not confront them? Because we're not ready. Not yet. Humanity's greatest advantage has always been our ability to learn from our enemies. For 15 years, we've studied their every move, their technology, their tactics. We've built our defenses not just to match them, but to counter them specifically. A holographic display sprang to life, showing the solar system and the positions of the Concordat's observation fleet. They think they're watching us, but we've been watching them far more carefully. Every transmission they send, every probe they launch, every piece of technology they think we're too primitive to detect. We've learned from all of it. Elena thought about her own research, the breakthroughs that had been deliberately kept quiet. How many other scientists had made similar discoveries, only to have them quietly absorbed into this massive deception. So what happens now? She asked. Now. Chen's smile finally reached her eyes. Now they're about to make their move. Our latest intelligence suggests they're preparing their assessment team. the first official contact that always precedes their intervention. And when they arrive, expecting to find a species barely capable of interplanetary travel, the director touched a control, and the chamber below came alive with lights and movement. The ships weren't just beautiful. They were ready. When they arrive, Chen continued, they'll learn why you don't underestimate a species that spent its entire history preparing for threats exactly like them. Welcome to the team, Dr. Santos. I think you'll find your new research budget quite generous. As Elena looked down at humanity's hidden strength, she couldn't help but smile. The Concordat thought they were the Watchers, the advanced civilization studying the primitive one. They had no idea they were about to become part of humanity's greatest object lesson. Never mistake patience for weakness. The game was about to begin, and Earth had been dealing the cards for 15 years. First contact occurred on a Tuesday morning in Geneva, and humanity put on the performance of a lifetime. The Concordat ship descended through Earth's atmosphere with deliberate slowness, its crystalline structure catching the sunlight in ways that made it impossible to ignore. They were putting on a show, demonstrating their technological superiority to the primitives below. The world watched through their screens, faces filled with manufactured awe and carefully rehearsed fear. Behind her mask of diplomatic concern, Ambassador Sarah Chen, Director Chen's daughter, fought to keep from smiling. The Concordat's surprise arrival had been anticipated down to the minute, their chosen landing site predicted 3 months in advance. The gathered world leaders and military officials played their parts perfectly, their reactions a masterpiece of choreographed uncertainty and confusion. The ship landed in the middle of the prepared site, its energy field scorching a perfect circle in the grass. Right on cue, the assembled human security forces raised their primitive projectile weapons, hands shaking just enough to be noticeable. The being that emerged from the ship was tall, its iridescent skin shifting colors in the morning light. 4 arms moved with fluid grace as it approached the human delegation, flanked by creatures that were clearly meant to be intimidating. Sarah noted every detail, comparing them to the intelligence reports she'd memorized. People of Earth, the alien's voice resonated through some form of technological translation. I am High Observer Vextol of the Concordat of civilized species. We come in peace to welcome you into a greater community. Sarah stepped forward, playing the role of humanity's chosen spokesperson. We are honored by your presence, she managed, allowing her voice to tremble slightly. Though I must admit, we are somewhat overwhelmed. Vextol's skin rippled with what their intelligence suggested was amusement. That is natural. Your species has shown remarkable progress for one so young. We have been watching your development with great interest. You've been watching us. Sarah injected just the right amount of surprise and unease into her voice. Behind her, the assembled leaders murmured amongst themselves, a carefully orchestrated display of concern. Indeed, your recent achievements, your first steps into space, your primitive understanding of quantum mechanics, your early attempts at AI, have shown us that you are ready for guidance. In her ear, a quantum-encrypted communicator picked up chatter from humanity's hidden observers. Every word, every gesture from the Concordat delegation was being analyzed and added to 15 years of accumulated intelligence. Their arrogance was a weapon, and humanity was learning how to wield it. Guidance? Sarah asked, letting hope creep into her voice. You would share your knowledge with us. In time, Vextol's skin shifted to a deep blue that their intelligence correlated with satisfaction. First, we must assess your readiness. Our observation has been distant until now. We must ensure your species will be a suitable addition to the Concordat. The next 6 hours were a masterclass in misdirection. The human delegation presented carefully doctored scientific data, showed their visitors technology that was decades behind what they actually possessed, and answered questions with calculated imprecision. In a hidden facility beneath the Geneva Conference Center, Dr. Elena Santos watched the feed with Director Chen. They're not even trying to hide their contempt, Elena observed. Why should they? Chen's smile was razor-sharp. From their perspective, They're so far beyond us technologically that deception would be unnecessary. Every gesture, every word is designed to remind us of our inferiority. The quantum scan they just performed of the facility, Elena noted, they think it went undetected. Of course, just like they think their attempts to access our computer networks were successful. Everything they're discovering about us was prepared months in advance. The real data, the real technology, is so well hidden they haven't even thought to look for it. On the surface, Vextol was concluding the initial meeting. We will remain in orbit, conducting our assessment. Your species shows promise, despite your limitations. With proper guidance, you may yet earn a place among civilized species. We are grateful for this opportunity, Sarah replied, bowing slightly. Though I must ask, what happens to species who are found wanting? Vextol's skin rippled with patterns their intelligence had never seen before. Such concerns are unnecessary. Simply cooperate with our assessment, and all will be well. As the Concordat ship lifted off, Sarah maintained her expression of diplomatic optimism. Only once she was alone in her quantum-shielded office did she allow herself to laugh. The Concordat thought they were assessing humanity's readiness for civilization. They had no idea they were the ones being tested. And so far, they were failing spectacularly. The Concordat's assessment lasted 3 months. For 3 months, humanity played the role of an eager, primitive species desperate to join the galactic community. For 3 months, they let their visitors find exactly what they were meant to find. Then the Concordat made their move, exactly as predicted. Dr. Elena Santos stood in the quantum-shielded command center beneath Geneva, watching as multiple Concordat ships entered Earth's atmosphere. Unlike the diplomatic vessel that had first contacted them, these were clearly military craft. Right on schedule, Director Chen observed, her voice carrying no trace of concern. Vextol's report to his superiors indicated we were distressingly unstable and in need of immediate intervention. On the main display, the Concordat ships took up attack positions above major cities. Their energy signatures were significantly higher than anything they'd previously revealed. They weren't bothering to hide their military capability anymore. Ambassador Chen, Vextol's voice carried across all broadcast frequencies, no longer bothering with diplomatic niceties. Your species has been evaluated and found in need of immediate guidance. Your technological development must be properly directed. Resist, and we will be forced to take more aggressive measures. Sarah Chen stood at the United Nations podium, playing her role one final time. High Observer, please, we've cooperated fully. Surely there's no need for threats. This is not a threat. This is civilization. The Concordat ships powered up their weapons. Your nuclear facilities will be neutralized first. Then your primitive AI research centers. This is for your own good. Sarah allowed herself a small smile. Is it? How interesting. She pressed a button on the podium that didn't appear in any official specifications. I believe it's time we stopped pretending, don't you, Director? In the command center, Director Chen nodded. Execute Protocol Omega. Let's show our visitors what they've actually been assessing. Across the solar system, humanity's mask fell away. The quantum shields that had hidden Earth's true technological development for 15 years deactivated in perfect synchronization. Orbital defense platforms that had been disguised as communications satellites revealed their true nature, and deep beneath the surface of Mars, Europa, and Titan, facilities that the Concordat had never detected hummed to life. Vextol's first indication that something was wrong came when his ship's sensors suddenly registered thousands of new energy signatures. The second came when his allegedly superior weapons simply refused to fire. What is this? His voice carried genuine confusion for the first time. Our systems are currently experiencing what we call a quantum lockout, Sarah explained, her diplomatic mask replaced by cold efficiency. Those primitive AI research centers you were so concerned about. They'd been studying your technology for 15 years. We know exactly how your weapons work and how to turn them off. In the command center, Elena watched as humanity's real defense grid activated. Not the outdated missiles and lasers they'd let the Concordat see, but quantum-entangled energy weapons and gravitic disruptors specifically designed to counter Concordat technology. "Send the message," Director Chen ordered. "The one we've been waiting 15 years to deliver." Sarah's voice carried to every Concordat ship in the solar system. "You came to Earth expecting to find primitives in need of guidance. What you actually found was a species that learned long ago to hide its strengths. Every piece of technology you saw, every capability you measured, was exactly what we wanted you to see." The Concordat ships found themselves surrounded by a fleet that had seemingly materialized from nowhere. Vessels emerged from quantum fields that had rendered them undetectable, their designs unlike anything in the Concordat database. "Your entire assessment," Sarah continued, "was actually our assessment of you, and I have to say, you failed rather spectacularly. Your arrogance, your assumption of superiority, your casual willingness to threaten those you consider lesser beings, you've demonstrated exactly why humanity chose to hide its true nature." "Impossible." Vextal's voice had lost its commanding tone. "Your species, your technology was primitive. We saw. You saw what we wanted you to see. Did you really think a species that spent its entire history competing, adapting, and overcoming would be so easy to subjugate? We've been preparing for threats like you since before we left our atmosphere." Director Chen watched as the Concordat ships attempted to retreat, only to find their drive systems unresponsive. "The question now," she said softly, "is what lesson they'll learn from this." In orbit, Sarah delivered humanity's final message to their would-be conquerors. "You came to assess our readiness for civilization. Instead, you prove your own civilization has much to learn. The choice now is yours. Leave this system, never return, and warn others of what you found here, or find out exactly what else we've been hiding." The silence that followed was broken only by the sound of humanity's hidden strength finally revealing itself to the stars. The game was over. The real test was about to begin. The Concordat's response came 3 weeks later, not in the form of diplomacy or negotiation, but as a massive fleet that emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the solar system. Hundreds of ships, far more than their initial assessment force, bristling with weapons that had subjugated dozens of other civilizations. They still hadn't learned. In the Mars Command Center, Dr. Elena Santos watched the approaching armada with Dr. Patel, head of Project Oracle's Quantum Warfare Division. The older scientist's expression was almost pitying as he studied the Concordat fleet's formation. "They upgraded their quantum shielding," he noted, "and added redundant control systems to prevent another lockout. They learned from their last encounter, but they're solving the wrong problem. They think we showed them all our cards." Elena realized. "They believe they know what they're up against now." "Precisely." Dr. Petal brought up a holographic display showing the fleet's approach vector. "They're expecting the same tricks. Quantum lockouts, gravitic disruptors, the technology we revealed during their assessment. They've prepared countermeasures for everything they saw. But not for what we kept hidden." Director Chen's voice came from the doorway. "Status of the Lazarus Protocol. Ready," Elena reported. "The quantum entanglement network is synchronized. Every ship in the defense fleet is linked. Above them, the Concordat fleet entered weapons range. Their first strike was meant to be overwhelming. A simultaneous barrage from hundreds of ships, enough firepower to crack a planet. The energy readings were beyond anything their intelligence had suggested the Concordat possessed. It didn't matter. The barrage hit a defense grid that simply shouldn't have been possible. Not just shields, but space itself seemed to warp and bend, redirecting the massive energy attack into carefully constructed quantum sinks. 15 years of studying Concordat weapons had taught humanity not just how to block them, but how to use them. "Return fire," Director Chen ordered. "Show them what humanity's been doing while they were congratulating themselves on their superiority." The counterattack began with weapons the Concordat had never seen before, had never even theorized. quantum-entangled missiles that existed in multiple states simultaneously, impossible to intercept because they weren't fully in normal space. Gravitic lances that didn't attack ships directly but altered the fundamental forces around them, turning their own mass against them. But it wasn't just the technology that caught the Concordat off guard. It was the strategy. They're using a centralized command structure, Dr. Patel observed. Each ship waiting for orders, following predetermined protocols. They've never faced an enemy that could match their technology, so they've never learned to adapt. Humanity's response was anything but centralized. Each ship, each battle group operated with near-perfect coordination through the quantum network, but their tactics were unpredictable, chaotic. 15 years of hidden preparation had created a military force that combined advanced technology with humanity's greatest strength, the ability to innovate, to think independently, to surprise. The Concordat fleet's neat formations began to break apart as they faced attacks from angles they hadn't considered possible. Their sophisticated AI combat systems, designed to counter known strategies, found themselves facing human unpredictability backed by technology that matched or exceeded their own. Message from the Concordat flagship, Elena reported. They're requesting parley. Director Chen's smile held no warmth. Put them through. Let's hear what they have to say now. The holographic display showed a very different Vextol from the arrogant being who had first come to assess humanity. His iridescent skin had dulled to a pale gray, and his 4 arms moved in patterns that their intelligence suggested indicated severe distress. You've made your point, he said, his translator struggling to convey the complex emotions in his voice. We underestimated your species. We apologize for our presumption. Please, let us withdraw. Withdraw. Director Chen's voice was deceptively soft. But I thought we needed guidance. Civilization. Wasn't that what you called it? We were wrong. Vextol's skin rippled with patterns they'd never seen before. Your species, you're not what we thought. The way you fight, the way you think, it's chaos, but organized chaos. Every time we adapt, you change everything. We've never seen anything like it. That's because you've spent too long being the superior species. Sarah Chen's voice joined the conversation from her position on the diplomatic vessel. You forgot what it's like to be the underdog, to have to outthink your opponents rather than simply overpower them. Humanity never had that luxury. We spent our entire history competing, adapting, preparing for threats exactly like you. The battle continued around them, but its outcome was no longer in doubt. The Concordat fleet, for all its power, was fighting an enemy that had spent 15 years preparing specifically for this moment, while hiding capabilities that went far beyond what they'd revealed. The question now, Director Chen said, is what happens next. Your civilization has spent centuries thinking you were the pinnacle of development. Today proves otherwise. So tell me, High Observer Vextol, is your species ready for some guidance of your own? The silence that followed was broken only by the sound of another Concordat capital ship succumbing to weapons they'd never imagined possible, its crystalline hull shattering into a million glittering pieces against the backdrop of stars. The lesson was being taught. Whether it would be learned remained to be seen. 1 year after the Battle of Seoul, as it came to be known, Dr. Elena Santos stood in a room that shouldn't have existed, on a station that officially didn't exist, watching representatives from 27 spacefaring civilizations argue about humanity. The Concordat's defeat had shattered more than their fleet. It had broken the foundation of their entire civilization, the assumption of their technological and cultural superiority. The revelation that a primitive species had not only matched their technology, but had hidden its true capabilities for years sent shockwaves through galactic society. They're still trying to understand how we did it, Sarah Chen observed, now serving as Earth's official ambassador to the newly formed Galactic Council. The Concordat's replacement was younger, more egalitarian, and significantly more cautious. Not just the technology, but the deception itself. The concept of deliberately appearing weaker than you are, it bothers them. It should. Director Chen replied, studying the assembled aliens with the same careful attention that had helped craft humanity's great deception. Their societies evolved through cooperation, consensus. They never had to think about hiding their strengths because they never faced existential threats from their own kind. The current speaker, a crystalline being from a civilization that had once been one of the Concordat's client states, was proposing strict regulations on technological development. Old habits died hard. That's enough. Alina surprised herself by speaking up. Every eye, sensor, and sensory apparatus in the room turned to her. You're still thinking like the Concordat. You're trying to control what you fear instead of understanding it. She walked to the center of the chamber, where a holographic display showed Earth. Humanity didn't hide its strength out of malice or fear. We hid it because history taught us that true strength isn't about having the biggest weapons or the most advanced technology. It's about knowing when to show your power and when to hold it in reserve. The display shifted, showing scenes from human history. Not just the wars and conflicts that many expected, but moments of cooperation, of different cultures and nations working together despite their differences. We spent millennia fighting ourselves, yes, but we also spent millennia learning from each other, adapting, growing. Every war taught us the price of arrogance. Every peace showed us the value of understanding our opponents. When we looked to the stars, we carried those lessons with us. Dr. Petal joined her, adding his own perspective. The Concordat's greatest failure wasn't underestimating our technology. It was assuming that a species' worth could be measured by a single standard of development. Humanity's strength isn't in our weapons or our deception. It's in our diversity of thought, our ability to see problems from angles you never considered. The chamber had fallen silent. Even the most vocal critics of humanity's admission to galactic society were listening now. You fear us because we hid our true nature, Sarah continued, her diplomatic training adding weight to her words. But ask yourselves, what would you have done in our position? When you detected ships watching your world, judging your civilization by their standards, would you have revealed everything? Or would you have done what humanity did? Watch, learn, and prepare. Director Chen stepped forward, addressing the assembly directly for the first time. The Concordat fell because it forgot the most important lesson any advanced civilization can learn. There's always something new to discover, always something to learn from those you think are beneath you. Humanity doesn't want to rule or dominate. We want to be part of something greater than ourselves. She gestured to the gathered representatives. But we'll do it as equals, not as subjects to be guided or primitives to be uplifted. The galaxy is changing. The question is, will you change with it? The silence that followed was different from the fearful quiet that had greeted humanity's revelation of its true strength. This was the silence of reflection, of paradigm shifting and assumptions being reevaluated. One by one, the representatives began to signal their agreement, not just to humanity's inclusion in galactic society, but to a fundamental restructuring of how civilizations would interact with each other. There will be resistance, Sarah warned later, as they watched the first trade ships openly enter Earth's solar system. Change never comes easily. No, Alina agreed, remembering that first strange signal she detected so long ago. But that's the point, isn't it? Change is what humanity does best. Director Chen smiled, watching as ships from a dozen worlds moved freely through space that had once been hidden behind quantum shields. We showed them that appearances can be deceiving. Now we'll show them something even more important. That strength doesn't have to be a weapon. It can be a foundation for something greater. Above them, Earth turned serenely, no longer hiding its true nature from the galaxy. The masks were gone, the deception ended. What remained was the truth the Concordat had failed to see, that the most dangerous species in the galaxy wasn't the one that showed its power, but the one that understood when not to. The lesson had been taught, and this time it had been learned.